Welcome. This is Shine a Light, and we have a special guest today. My good friend Israel Hammond is here with me in the studio. We know him as a few names. Izzy Is Real, and he is someone who I've had the opportunity to grow a lot closer to this year, get to know a lot better. Has been a family friend over the past 10 years now.
Sheesh.
Crazy how time flies. So over the past 10 years, but this past year we've been able to work together creatively and professionally, and I'm really excited to have this sit down conversation with him and allow him to share with you what he has in the works and what he's been working on. So without further introduction, I give you Israel Hammond.
Yo, appreciate it.
How you doing, my guy?
Man, doing well. This is exciting.
It's good to see you, man. It's been a little while since the last project we worked on together, Vanport the musical. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you played the same role when you were in Vanport in 2013, right?
Yeah. So the same role, because we did it back-to-back years.
Okay.
So I was the same role every single time. I auditioned, and I was just kind of like, I didn't even know if I was going to get that role again. Like, Miss Shalonda, the director, she was reaching out and was like, hey, like, if you're interested, because I reached out and was like, hey, I want to be a part of it. She's like, well, if you're interested, here's where we're having auditions. This is the time.
Right.
So went to auditions, got reconnected with y'all post-COVID, and then it was just kind of like from there, the ball started rolling, and then I got callbacks. I was like, okay, callbacks, that's a good sign. I just want to be a part of it, you know? So I didn't even know what I was going to get. And then I get the email, and it's like, Dan spot is already taken. I was like, man, I wonder who got it, because I really don't know if it's me. Like, I really had no clue. And so then I got the script, and I was like, ooh, this is nice. Because I haven't acted since COVID. Okay, or not COVID, since Vanport the first time.
Oh, so you had a long
it was a
layoff,
long break.
Because the original Vanport, that was 2013. And for those of you who don't know, Israel is a Portland transplant, not a native. He's from North Carolina, and you moved out here in 2012, right?
2012.
So, man, we'll get into a little bit of the move as we go, but just what were some of the things that you were able to carry from the original performance, and then some of the things that were completely different for you? But, you know, we're a lot older now. You can kind of see the characters differently. You have some lived experiences that kind of shape the way you view the text, right? So talk about some of the differences or similarities even with the character and playing the same character 10 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by like dissecting the character without giving too much away, because I feel like, you know, we might end up doing it again. That's my hope.
If you didn't see it,
you missed it.
That's on you. You know,
you missed it. Nah, it's the first time I was going through the piece, I just was looking at it. So I was 18 the first time I did it. And so I was kind of coming out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd already been in Portland for about like a year at that point. And so I was more like a hooper. I was more into athletics, but I did some auditionings prior to back in Charlotte. So I was doing like library plays and stuff like that. So like nothing really crazy. And so in terms of like the approach, I wanted to be a true thespian. So I was like, all right, I want to take this character very seriously. So let me do some background. You know, I'm going to create a background narrative in my head. And like, so I was trying to, I had more of like a childlike approach to the character, I would say, or more, I would say amateur, I guess, initially. And the world that I was coming from in adjacent to the character, I felt like I was having to really act out the character, as opposed to kind of taking pieces of my experience and throwing into the character. So I feel like when you fast forward like 9-10 years, you know, I'm 26 now, and just like the character itself, I had experiences between that time that I could kind of stick to. And so that made it a little bit easier to kind of understand the nuance and like, you know, how my character interacted with other characters and the whys behind it. And it felt a lot more natural. But the thing that carried was there's this one portion where I had to play drunk, and that's just always been my favorite piece, my favorite part. And
A lot of people's favorite parts, for sure, for sure. I remember one of the student matinees we had, and the kids was eating that scene up, man. I was in the back of the scene, so you know I can look out into the audience every now and then, and the kids were just, they thought it was hilarious. So, but yeah, go ahead, continue.
But yeah, that was one piece that kind of translated, and so then after that, I was kind of like, man, all right, and I was already in my head about it, about being away from acting for about 10 years and then coming back. So like I feel like that auditioning kind of brought me back to a place of like, nah, you're doing this, versus just kind of like, oh, here you go, here's your role, here, like we're doing this again. Like, nah, it was like I kind of had to go back through all the steps, you know, and that brought a new, fresh, kind of like a light. I kind of felt like it was lit under me at that point.
So something about the intensity, or like your focus and your approach was able to really help kind of shape the experience that you had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what do you officially go by? Because you are, for those of you who don't know, Israel is a man of many, many talents. When I first kind of was getting acclimated, getting to know him, definitely through a lot of other mutual friends, and we would just run into each other in the city, kind of running around doing who knows what, running around, and we would run into each other. And then, like I said, as this year started, we were able to kind of grow in that friendship and develop a friendship outside of working together and outside of performing in theater. But I know him as a poet. So what do you officially go by these days?
Officially, I go by Izzy Is Real. That's still kind of my moniker. But Izzy honestly came out, my older sister, so I'm in the middle of 5. So my older sister, she started calling me Izzy when I was like 13.
Okay.
And she was the only one that was calling me Izzy. And then other people started hearing it. I was like, nah, my sister's the only one that calls me Izzy. So it started off as something like that. And then, I mean, I'm 14, turning 15, you know, I'm growing one chin hair here, you know, and so the ladies are like, Izzy. I'm like, ooh, yeah, let me go with Izzy. Let me go with Izzy.
I like that.
I like that. I like that. Smile. Nah. And so once that kind of started to happen, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to start going by Izzy now. And so I just started going by Izzy just in general. And then moved out here. You know, I'm 16, turned 17 when I first moved out here. So I'm like, all right, I know Izzy worked with the ladies back home. So let me see if Portland's going to give me the same kind of love. And so, and I was also a hooper. So
Hold on. I'm not just going to let you skip past that. So did Portland give you the same kind of love?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got the same kind of love, and a different kind of love. I had to kind of, Portland was kind of wilding a little bit at first, so I kind of had to get my feet up under me, kind of understanding more how to maneuver certain types of dynamics, if you will. So yeah, but I got the same kind of love for the most part.
Aside from the love that you get from Izzy, what are some of the things that kind of, like, when you first got here to kind of transition into what brought you here, what you were maybe hoping to get out of the move, or the situation, what it was like for you, to just kind of give us a little bit more understanding of how that transition has gone from North Carolina to Portland, 2 completely different places. I've was lucky enough to be able to go to a conference out in North Carolina this past March. So I've now seen it for the first time. Can't say I experienced it a whole bunch, but what are some of the draws from that you found out once you got here, and I guess kind of what's kept you here?
Yeah, so we were only gonna move. So I moved out here with my family. So all my siblings and my mom, my pops, we all moved out here, and it was for my dad's job.
Big move. Big move. Yeah, okay.
But we were only supposed to be here for a year.
Mm.
So I was homeschooled. So I've been homeschooled from 3rd grade through high school. I was homeschooled all the way through. So moving out here, I was like, extended vacation. Most definitely.
It's like,
Yes.
I'll go.
Yes. Like for a year.
I'm with it, Pops.
I'm with it. Like I'm on the move. Like, let's fly. Like I'm ready to fly. Your company's gonna pay for tickets? Like, come on, Pops. Like, come on, please.
Where are we going?
Where are we going? Like, it's just a year. And then we didn't fly. My mom was like, oh, we driving. Because this is going to be an educational experience. You're going to see the countryside. We're going to go to Mount Rushmore. It's going to be great. I'm like, flying though. Like, come on. Like, that's like going to the airport because I never really flown at that point.
I was just about to ask, had you flown a lot as a kid, or was this kind of something you were looking forward to?
I was looking forward to it because I'd only flown once. And so every other vacation we had was driving. So I'm like, let's flip it this time. Like, we drive everywhere. We driving to Texas. We driving to Alabama.
Can we do something new?
Can we do something new? Like, please. And Mom's was like, since she was our teacher, she was like, no, you gonna learn. You gonna learn about America. And I was like, yo, it's not that deep. But, I mean, I do appreciate the trip. And so when we got out here, I was like, all right. We were staying downtown because the company was taking care of it. So it was just cool all the way around. Found a team to play basketball for, and it was, I never really processed moving here because my mindset wasn't I'm staying. So I just was in vacation mode for the most part. So it didn't really like, I wasn't thinking of like, oh, I'm moving here to stay and I'm leaving my friends. One of the biggest caveats that my parents pitched was like, we're definitely coming back. Like, we're definitely going back home to North Carolina. Like, that's for sure. No questions asked. We're not even, like, thinking about that.
Okay.
And so then it's my junior year of high school. So we move out here right before my junior year. And I'm going to school. And then I reach my senior year. And we're still here. And that came out of a lot of things, like with my dad, his health. And so, like, some things fell through. And our world kind of started to get very scattered, and we were just kind of figuring out what to do. And my mom was like, let's just stay. And I was like, nah, we said a year. I'm telling all my homies I'm gonna be back. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I got
what happened to sticking to the plan?
Exactly.
No, yeah.
Exactly. I got, Izzy Love waiting for me back home. So it's just like, I was like, yo, like, you messing with my bag. Like, you're messing with me right now. Like, I had things going on, and they were just kind of like, nah. Like, my mom mainly was like, I really feel like we're supposed to stay. And so I grew up in church. I grew up, in, like, some people call it religion. I just call it more like just a faith-based home. And there were religious tendencies to it, but not to get too deep into that. But we very much believe that if you are intentional about where you're at and you're staying tuned to I guess the roadmap that God's laid out for you, things are going to work, things are going to happen, things are going to manifest, right? And so out of that, it was a really hard, isolating time because we knew no one here originally, like not a single person in Portland, Oregon. And we found a church and people just started showing love, like inviting us to cookouts and all this other stuff. So that kind of brought more of that, like, okay, no, like, I feel like God wants us here. Like, I feel like this is where we're supposed to be. But it's not what I liked. So I was like, all right, Mom, I don't like this. Maybe this is all working out cool for now, but what about a couple months from now? What about next week? What about next year? Like, this is all cool because this was our plan up till this point. And so once I kind of got past that, my mom was like, nah, we're hunkering down and we're staying. And my dad literally left his job for us to follow through with that decision. He asked to be transplanted to a base out here in Portland, and they were like, nah, either work in Charlotte or we don't need you, more or less. And so my mom said, we're staying. And my dad said, is that what y'all want to do? And my mom looked at us and we were like, yeah. Like,
she gave that one good motherly look.
Yeah. We're like, yeah, that's what we want. Yeah, sure. And so we stayed.
It's I mean, when it's in God's plan,
Mm-hmm.
our timing doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
right?
No.
And like you said, we won't get too deep into faith and religion. Although, if anybody want to have that conversation, we'll definitely have it over here at
Yes.
World Stage Theater. We're not afraid, nor do we shy away from any of
Mm-hmm.
our faith base or our upbringings.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get a World Stage Theater product, it's coming from a place that is based in faith,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But I think that's really interesting the way you said people, like, once you started going to church and you found a church home,
Mm-hmm.
you started to build that community, and without knowing anyone here, you were suddenly involved in things like theater, things
Mm-hmm.
like hooping, and all the just different aspects of extracurricular
Mm-hmm.
activities and
Mm-hmm.
cookouts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's real community driven.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say it was for you to kind of engross and get acclimated to a community where you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know anyone other than your family?
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that change at all for people moving to Portland now versus when you first moved here, and
Mm-hmm.
how the black community kind of is
Mm-hmm.
with people who are not from Portland?
Mm-hmm. Ah, man, that's a really good question. I think uh initially I moved out here right before Portland was shifting in a lot of major ways. And I think that's kind of what makes that question very, very like complex. It's not even very complex. I think it's just more so like there's a lot of ways that I can take that. And so I'll just navigate that by saying, like, initially I was homeschooled. So I was constantly thrown in uncomfortable scenarios. I was always the black kid because I was homeschooled. Homeschooling wasn't popular in North Carolina for black families. You had to have, at least 6 to 8 figures in order to be able to homeschool at least one kid, because you're paying for actual textbooks, like college priced textbooks
Gotcha.
for elementary, middle school. And if you go to public school, the state just pays for them, right? So like
Right.
that's the difference. And then you have to travel for everything. And then you have to advocate for your child. And so I was always playing basketball for private schools. Private schools were mostly white. So like I was already kind of used to that dynamic when I got to Portland.
Right. And that dynamic being the breakdown of
Mm-hmm.
Portland's mostly
Mostly white.
white population,
Yeah.
very small in the black percentage of black
Mm-hmm.
people out here in the Portland area. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you were used to the minority aspect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that came pretty easy because I remember I had this conversation with my mom, and I went to a predominantly black church. And so it was a church of like 5,000. And our family was like a pillar family there. And I have a big family in general. Like my dad has 5 siblings. My mom has 2 siblings, and they all had kids. And so we all would visit each other. I got family in Birmingham, Alabama, and we would go down there to visit family. So like the culture, the black culture for me and my family was like really rich. And when I went to go home, get homeschooled though, I was kind of like feeling like I was kind of living a double life. And I asked my mom one day, I really remember this distinctly because we were commuting like 40 minutes one way, just to have like what's considered co-ops, which is like one day of like actual school for homeschoolers.
Okay.
And so everyone's using the same curriculum throughout the week. And then one day a week, everyone comes together and kind of talks about what they've been learning.
Gotcha.
And so like that's kind of what it was about. And so one day I was leaving, I was like, Mom, like I feel fake. Like I don't interact with my cousins. I don't interact with my church friends in the same ways that I interact with these people. Like, and that feels very fake and wrong to me. And she was like, nah, Israel, like in the Bible it says like learning how to be all things to all people. I believe Paul said that's what she was saying. And it's like learning how to be all things to all people. It's not fake. The only time it's fake is when you're not being yourself in those spaces. It's not wrong to try and relate to someone in a way to where you're meeting them and they're meeting you. Like that doesn't make it fake unless you yourself are changing or altering yourself to fit a scenario. And I was like, huh. So it's not fake. And like then I started to understand about like code switching and like what all these other things started to mean and kind of like where I see myself fitting in that.
Right.
Identity. Who am I? Like what do I want? What am I about? And so to translate it to now, like Portland has changed a lot since I first moved here. And there's a lot of like I literally ran into a couple of homies who moved from Charlotte to Portland like 3 years ago. And I met them when they first moved out here. And I just was talking with them about it. I'm like, man, like, how's your experience been? And they work with Nike. So it's like they're having a very different experience because if you're working for a major company in Portland, you don't really have to deal with a lot of the stuff that a lot of the Black community has had to deal with for those who have been born and raised here, right? And this is coming out of like knowledge that I gained from doing the Vanport play. Like Vanport, when I first moved out here, really helped me understand what I was like embarking upon, like when I moved here.
Right.
And come to find out, a lot of people who were born and raised here don't even know the story of Vanport. And that blew my mind. And I was like, how am I a foreigner? Or I don't want to say a foreigner, but someone who's not from here and like...
And just as much, at least on this event and this city and this way of living that plays such a huge role in the entire makeup of our city, yet it's not taught in schools. You can't find it in your textbook. And without the production, there's so many people who to this day wouldn't know anything about it.
No.
Just recently, the Vanport Mosaic Festival that was taking place, and they were actually able to get a Vanport building put in place downtown in the PSU area. They were able to, I believe the mayor actually came out and finally said something about Vanport and the dikes 2 years ago. So
I remember that.
There's starting to be some of that knowledge that's being widespread and starting to be some of the reconciliation from what took place. But like you said, it's crazy to think or strange to think that someone who's not from here, not lived here their whole life, could know more about something so monumental and important.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that kind of helps explain Portland to a sense. But keeping it in line with where we're going, I think that idea of you having the ability to kind of recognize some of those underlying themes that were taking place in the city gave you an upper hand, so to speak, to be able to thrive in a new place that you weren't familiar in. And so I guess to transition that, how do you see yourself kind of impacting your community now and impacting the Black community here in Portland? What are some of the things that you're working on currently to continue what your mom kind of instilled in you once you got here?
Yeah, nah. So with that, it's kind of crazy. On the heels of finishing Vanport, I started interning for the city / the county. So like I would have an internship every summer for the most part. Either I was interning for the Water Treatment Bureau or for a commissioner or for a program that's helping young Black men in Portland, right? Like, and so like literally Vanport doing the play with World Stage kind of like was a launching pad almost, because once my eyes were open to like what was going on here, I was like, okay, yeah, I see what y'all trying to do. Bet.
Right.
Bet. We're gonna have fun with this one, right? Like,
Okay.
it was a challenge that I was really excited to kind of dig my teeth into, because I feel like that's what my parents have always instilled in us. It's like this world isn't meant for you to succeed. Like the systems that have been in place, and I feel like systems is like a buzzword now. You know what I mean? Like, and so like, but
A
more.
lot has changed over the last 3 to 5 years in the way people communicate and say certain words, and everybody talks about diversity and inclusion.
Right.
That's like a company's favorite thing to say now. And 5 years ago, it didn't exist, but now everybody got a diversity and inclusion committee and chair board, and so so
equity and equality, like
which to us is like, okay, that's just like standard practice. That's I thought this was how it's supposed to work, and now for we're really doing it and making change. Which I don't say that to laugh at any of that, but I think for a lot of people in the Black community, it's fair to say that when we see it, it's more like a okay, and like about time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, it's definitely, there's definitely a lot of those keywords and phrases that have seemed to grow with a lot of uproar over the last few years. And yeah, I always find it interesting how vocabulary is suddenly changed.
Yeah, and like even like being politically correct, right? Like PC words and stuff like that, and like that's kind of what I was taught to kind of navigate the world through when I was interning at these different places. And I was like, okay, so this is how, like, I guess the city or, you know, governmental officials view me, right? Like I'm a box to be checked, you know, like, oh, we have a Black intern in our office. Like I started to kind of notice that I was a poster boy, not taken serious as someone who's actually interested in what I'm interning for, right? And so once I started to see that, I was like, okay. And I just was like taking it all in, and then I never felt comfortable enough to say anything about it because I was like, who am I? Like, I'm here on their dime. So if I say something, that might jeopardize me or someone else before me, because the internships I was getting as well, I was like the pilot intern for it. So it's like not my decision making isn't just impacting me. I want to make sure I'm opening doors.
It affects who comes after you.
Exactly.
Direct effect on who comes after you.
Exactly. And like that's the part that I was stuck in between. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna figure my stuff out, and I'm gonna come back. So when I came back, I kind of came back with this drive in poetry, which was discovered in college. And so once that kind of started to pop off, I came back and started performing at you know, local open mics, and people were asking me to speak at, you know, different events and stuff like that, which leads me to kind of like your question of like what's going on now. Like, you know, I published a book last year. Appreciate that.
Most definitely.
Appreciate that. And self-published. I own the rights. You know what I'm saying? Like all that. And just recently had my art up in an exhibit in Salem that is predominantly a white museum. It's strategically placed in a location that they don't necessarily have to put art of cultures.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're not necessarily going in there. I follow.
Yeah.
For anyone who's been to Salem, you understand.
And so like that was through Black Matter, which is a nonprofit in the area. And so that was just kind of like a word of mouth situation. And they're like, hey, we would love to have your art out here. So I was like, cool. Well, let me figure this out. And, you know, got plugged in with the agency, marketing agency that kind of helped me with the film aspect of it. And just like it goes back to what we were saying before, like when you are in the space and you're walking in what God has for you, there's not a whole lot you have to toil over to kind of get there. I mean, not saying it doesn't come without hardships, or it doesn't come without obstacles, it doesn't come without, you know, dedication and discipline, but it's not always just a grind 24/7 for it. And so he was just kind of like, I felt like God was just like, all right, cool, like do this. And it was like lining up, and to the point to where last Saturday I had a performance at Dean's Barbershop, Block Party. And it's the oldest Black-owned barbershop in Oregon, for those who don't know. And being able to share a piece there was kind of like, oh, like people are actually starting to really feel this, because right before COVID started happening, I started to kind of perform more in Portland. Then COVID hit, and like all my traction was just done,
right,
all the way done. And so I was kind of like going through COVID, like, my art form, how I make money is with people. And I can't trust people with their health. I mean, people can't trust me with my health. Like there's this whole dynamic of like, oh, you might, the world's just in a weird place. And so I wasn't really big on, you know, web sessions and stuff like that. Like that just doesn't feel authentic to me. And not knocking it, just more so saying like for what I prefer, I prefer to be in the room. I prefer to feel the energy, feel the vibe, feel like the emotions that are kind of just existing in that space. And so that kind of led me on a journey of understanding more of what I want and why am I doing what I'm doing. And that birthed the book that came out of me starting my own company. And so that's what then brought traction for now. And last Saturday, so just to kind of bring it all back in, last Saturday was performing at Dean's, and someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, wait, you work for SEI at Harriet Tubman Middle School, right?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay, I thought I recognized you. Well, here's somebody, and they want you to perform for the Vanport Jazz Festival that's coming up. They really loved your piece." And I was like, "Oh, cool.
Right. Sign me up.
Sign me up. Yeah, like I'm here for that."
Oh, that's big.
And that kind of like was like cool. And that came on the heels of another organization that I work for is PDX Black Excellence.
As far as that, just I had a follow-up question with the poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you look to? I know that you pull a lot of your inspiration from experiences and like what you want and who you want to impact. But are there other poets out there that you like to pull from, or music artists that you kind of get inspired by? How do you, I'll ask you that one and then I got to follow up to it, but how do you kind of seek inspiration in your poetry and in your writing?
Yeah. So I got introduced to poetry, I forget, how old was I? I think I was in middle school. I might have been 8th grade. I got exposed to poetry, and I was taking a creative writing class, and we were reading different poets, like Robert Frost and like all these other people, and I stumbled upon a passage by Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
And he's traditionally a very dark, moody writer, like not necessarily someone who's like, oh, I'm so excited to see sunshine and, daisies and sunflowers and, the positive sides of life. He's more so very talking about like more introspective dynamics. And what drew me to him was his ability to write something down that's been on paper for years, like before I was even existing, and be able to put words to emotions that I had that no one else around me seemed to know how to articulate. And I was like, okay, like he was able to unlock a part of my psyche or like a part of my imagination or a part of my experience and engage in it with me without physically being there. And I thought that was fly. I mean, I felt it was invasive at first, but like I grew
up in my business.
Yeah, like bro, like you don't know me, like why you trying to talk like you know what's going on in my life? And then I took a step back. I was like, no, like that's actually really beautiful. And so I was like, from there, I wanted to write novels. I didn't even want to go into poetry like that. I was more so interested in novels and creative writing and short stories. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an author one day, and I'm going to write a short story. That was my dream after kind of like going through that creative writing workshop. And so the poetry part was kind of like oh, this is cool. Like it wasn't really like oh, this is my passion. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
I need to be a poet.
Yeah. Nah.
Down the road, it just kind of started to build. And as you were writing, it was like, well, I can kind of take it here. Because I remember we had such great feedback. Izzy was actually one of the performers at our Vanport After Dark event that we had in our World Stage Theater Arts Annex building. Catch us in Southeast, a new building that we just got this year. Shout out to that. But we had Izzy as one of the performances, and he performed 3 pieces, right? Yeah. Man, I think the first one, the crowd was kind of warming up still a little bit. But as you went into the second and third one, I just remember everybody like sitting up straight, eyes locked in. Like the room was just very in tune with what you were saying. The room was, I won't say in a trance, but like everybody was paying attention. And I know that sometimes that doesn't always happen for
facts
for art. It's hard to get a room full of people to all kind of jump on one accord all the time. So it's amazing to see the way you are able to connect with people and the way you put words in sequences that are able to flow and give life to situations. So definitely giving you your flowers
Bro, I
on
appreciate
that,
that.
and the way that you use your words to relay messages is beautiful for sure. And then the follow-up that I had was, how do you go into pieces, or like if somebody was like, I want you to come and speak and do a piece at such and such event, what is that creative process like of sitting down to begin a piece, or figuring out which piece works best for which event?
Excuse me. Yeah, that question typically happens when someone's asking me if I can speak at the event. My follow-up question then goes, what's the event and what's the why? And from their answer, I can go, I'm going to say yes to this because I relate to this and I know that I can speak to that genuinely, or I'm going to say no because I'm like, this isn't my target audience, or like it doesn't fit who I am, you know what I'm saying, or what I stand for, you know, or any of those things. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind when someone's like, hey, like, yo, we'd love to have you do this thing. So I'm kind of, I'll ask like, all right, time, place, like what is it about? Who are you, right? What are you about? And then
Say, can't work with everybody. You
No.
know, got to be careful.
Yeah, for real.
No, not everything that is for us is necessarily good for us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
In a lot of different aspects of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that one confidently. So
Yeah. So that's kind of like the launching pad of my thought process, and then it then bleeds into, once I say yes, I then go, okay, do I want to write a new piece for this, or do I have something that I haven't shared with anyone yet? You know, so like I have hundreds of poems that I have not read to anyone publicly. I mean, maybe friends here and there, you know, intimate spaces, family, whatever, cool. But in terms of like performing it, I got a lot that I just haven't, and so I'll pull from that, tweak it maybe depending on the situation, or just write a new one. And like for instance, for the block party that happened last Saturday, I started writing it on a Wednesday night, and I was just kind of thinking about it, and like I knew about it like 3 weeks ago.
right.
Like, but I think it's just in terms of being present and like being able to lean into the flow and not chase the flow or not try and control the flow. I think that's been my biggest thing. And so based off of that, if I'm in tune, then I can write something. And if I'm in tune, I may not write something. I may just, you know, perform something
Off the dome?
Yeah. So it's a mix.
What's up, y'all? He talking about off the dome. I feel like we need to hear something. Can we get 15 seconds, 30 seconds? What's up?
30 seconds.
What's up? What you got?
30 seconds of just a piece, just like something that's off the fly.
He said off the dome, y'all. So.
I mean, like writing. I'm like J. Cole, like off the dome writing.
Okay.
Yeah. Not just like. I mean, I could try.
I won't put you
I
on
won't
the
say
spot
no
too
to
much.
trying, but
Yeah.
like I'm J. Cole. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Like that's, and you talk about, you know, artistic inspiration. Like that man, like he's from Fayetteville. You know what I'm saying? He put North Carolina on the map, and like that's something that like someone that I've, you know, looked up to lyrically. But not to shy away from. I'm gonna double back to like, do you want to hear something though?
What's up? Go ahead, bless us real quick.
Yeah. I'll read the poem that I had for I performed last Saturday.
Okay, cool. And then after that, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But
Cool.
maybe have a one or two, you know, maybe put your. I'll let you think about it while you looking that up. But maybe put like your top 5 artists together.
Ooh, top 5. Sheesh.
Yeah,
Okay.
do
Top
like
5.
a little top 5. I would love to hear that, and maybe that's artists that you're inspired by, artists you would like to mimic your artistry after. But yeah, like a top 5.
Top 5.
In the game, out the game, it's open to everybody.
Okay, cool. I got you. Okay, so this one, I mean, it doesn't really have a title, so I'll just read it. 60s, 70s, 80s beauty shops. Hair, heritage, heirs, heiresses, flair, deans it is. Portland, where are we? Redlining, uproot me. But clearly you don't know what's backing behind me. That's us, B. Black and proud P. Pride is hair C. Braids no box can keep this hair untrained. Trained to be a goddess made queen, a legend made king. If racism had a face and lips, it must kiss the ring. Flexing is in our DNA. Resilience is in each strand and strain. Love wins all, but Malcolm balances the scales like Major Payne. Two extremes, but Martin was on the same page. Assassinating hope as if it snuffed out our flame. Fear says you'll get shot going against the grain. They trying to cut us down, but these clippers were made for black hands, so we use them for creativity while others use them to kill. We use shears for community, not to bring tears. Dean, the head of a college or university, faculty or department. Dean, the head of the chapter or the cathedral of a collegiate church. We have education and transportation. Andrew's beer left uncut like Frederick Douglass. Abolitionists in 1830 fought hard for us to get there. That's my message apart from anyone else. You thought these words would fall on deaf ears, but now each syllable's felt like that special linen in grandma's cabinet. Grandma's hug, nothing better than grandma's hug. 60 years of love, you feel in each hair touch. Follicles remember where they came from. Braids always remember who laced them. Grandma's hands we trust more than Allstate. No insurance needed, cause rest assured they all great. Don't forget where you came from. Like why we don't forget Deans. Love is sometimes all we have, so Deans is where we dream. Dream to dare, dream to fly, dream to fiend for ways to try. Not just try but be, not just be but do, not just be but share, not just share but trust. Trust that this new dude can give me community, the community I need to make it true. True? I know the answer for me, but ask, what can Deans do for you? This is no commercial, but I hope you know now. I hope you now get the point. 60s, 70s, 80s, I'm talking beauty shops, hair, heritage, heirs, heiresses, flair. Deans it is. Portland, where are we? Redlining uproot me, but clearly you don't know what's backing behind me. That's us, B. Black and proud P. Pride is hair C. Braids no box can keep this hair untrained. Trained to be a goddess made queen, a legend made king. If racism had a face and lips, it must kiss the ring. Don't forget where you came from, like why we don't forget Deans. Love is sometimes all we have, so Deans is where we dream. Dream to dare, dream to fly, dream to fiend for ways to try, not just try but do, not just do but be, not just be but share, not just share but trust that this new dude can give me community, the community I need to make it true. True? I know the answer for me, but ask, what can Deans do for you?
Yes, sir.
Sheesh. It's
Snap
warm
it
up here, man.
Man.
It's warm up here, man.
Look, we couldn't have you in the seat, first guest, first episode of Shine a Light and not let you rock the mic like that. And I appreciate it. So like we mentioned before, I'm gonna get your top 5 and then we'll go ahead and
wrap it up.
get you out of here. Yeah.
Man, sheesh. Top 5. So first, J. Cole.
Okay.
I don't know if it's technically number 1. I'm still trying to figure out.
No order necessary.
No order necessary. Okay.
Just the top 5.
So we got J. Cole. We got Rudy Francisco. He's a poet that, where's he from? He's from the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken, or Chicago. I can't remember, but I discovered him on Button Poetry. If you go on YouTube and follow Button Poetry, I'm not affiliated with them at all, but if you love poetry, that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from. And then third, sheesh, I was trying to think about it. In a weird way, Kirk Franklin, I think more so his ability to take what's considered secular. If you grew up in church, like he was that one dude that was able to put like cuts that your parents knew that they act like they didn't know, and then flip it to where like everyone could sing it in church and like them feel okay about it, that whole thing. Anyway, so Kirk Franklin for that. And then inspiration for the pen. Inspiration for the pen. Kehlani. I know that's an interesting one, but she really played a very pivotal role with her "You Should Be Here" EP. That helped me a lot. And then,
That fifth spot.
It's that bro.
Can't leave nobody out.
Can't leave nobody out. That's why I had to have a female in there. Sheesh. I'm on the spot. Let me think about who's in my poetry, storytelling.
We'll make sure don't nobody, don't come for him if your favorite artist ain't in this top 5.
Yeah, come on.
It's his top 5, not yours.
Thank you.
Yeah, no pressure.
I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, there it is. I might lose some Izzy love for this one, but Chris Brown, that's gonna be my 5th one.
And you know what?
That's where it is for me. So.
That's his top 5. It's a good brother right here. So you leave his top 5 alone, all right? Nah, man, I appreciate you coming out here. Man, just it's an honor to continue to work, be creative, be in creative spaces together. See the growth as we grow as individuals, young black men, people who actually have an opportunity to work with even younger black men. I think that's something that we both really connect on. That's very important for us, kind of like we mentioned earlier, being able to know that the doors that we open, we aren't just opening them for us. The encounters that we have, we don't just encounter them for us. They're usually leaving the door cracked for that young man that's coming behind us, young man or young woman, and doing the same thing that the people who came before us did for us.
Yes.
And so it almost seems selfish when you get to it and you're like, I'm just gonna worry about me. Like you realize you wouldn't be there had the person before you had that same attitude, right? So just continue to try to pay that forward. But like I said, it's been a pleasure and honor chopping it up with you.
Sure, man.
Won't be the last.
Oh, no.
We'll get you back in here. But yeah, that's it. Let the people know where they can find you. Quick reminders on what you got coming up, and we'll let you go.
Definitely. Appreciate it. So yes, sir. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm mainly on Instagram. I have a Facebook, but I'm not really on it like that. So you can find me on Instagram, IZZY_IS_REAL. Izzy Is Real. And coming up, well, you can also find me on LinkedIn under Israel Hammond. If you're on that business tip, I'm definitely checking that. I stay up on that. And then coming next week, next Friday, you can catch me at the Vanport Jazz Festival. And then also actually next week is the beginning of Sneaker Week. And you can catch me at Jupiter Hotel. They're going to be having like an opening event for that. So come through, say what's up.
But like I said, that's going to do it for today. Thank you for tuning in, chilling and chopping it up with us on Shine a Light, where we just want to make sure we're impacting and showing love to those people who are making a difference, who are doing beautiful things artistically in the classroom with painting, singing, the whole 9. Just continuing to make an impact and show love for beautiful black art in all of its many forms. So thank you, and that'll be it for today.
Yes. Peace.